We could watch an Australian video. It's maybe been a couple of weeks. We got this video from Urak Hunt, which is definitely not a pun of a name. This is definitely a very serious channel name. Why does it keep moving that camera? Go over here. Why is PewDiePie in trouble though? He's not in trouble? I don't know. What do you mean? Why is he in trouble? I think we'll check this out and maybe we'll go from there. So, from Urak Hunt, Holden Commodore drivers, brother. Gotta love fucking Holden Commodore.
Now before I get into this video, I've got to say, this may be offensive to some Commodore drivers. So if this video is
that's about right.
is offensive to you, I advise you to grow up. It's a joke, not a so don't take it so hard. Anyway, let's get into it. And of course, before we get into this video, I've got to say that all the stunts you see have been performed on private property by professional drivers.
I'm sure
don't
they
try
have
any of
been.
this stuff at home, because you could get a boo-boo. Right, is that all good? Everybody knows that Ford Ranger drivers are by far the worst drivers.
I don't know about you guys, but I fucking love dashcam videos. I adore dashcam videos. So many people have no idea how to drive.
Drivers in the entire world. But you see, this generation of Ford Rangers only been around for about 15 years. And after I put out my Ford Ranger drivers video, I've had literally billions of people send me messages asking, how did people take their financed jet skis to the Rye boat ramp before the PX Ranger came out? And one of the most popular options back in the day was of course the Holden Commodore. So I thought, fuck it. In 3 years of doing this, I've barely even mentioned the Holden Commodore. So
mate, what are you doing?
in this video, we'll be going through everything that you need to
this
doing
holy
this. I barely
shit.
even mentioned the Holden Commodore.
The last thing the family of four sees after deciding on a scenic drive. Yeah, look, the problem is though, like, there's less and less people driving them now because Holden's not in business anymore, and this is a fucking, what, 2006 car at this point.
So in this video, we'll be going through everything that you need to know about Holden Commodore drivers.
lad.
Anyway, it's time for me to stop the waffle. Let's get into it. The Holden Commodore is Australia's most
Oh man, look at that thing. Look at that car.
iconic vehicle, full stop. Despite the fact that most of them were based off a German car with an American engine and driveline, the Holden Commodore far outsold the more superior, more reliable, and more Australian Ford Falcon. But I can already smell the death threats being written in my comment section from the VY Commodore owners group, so we'll move on. Now the first thing that we're going to touch on today is of course the most common thing to do in Commodores, and that is
I was gonna say burnouts.
burnouts. Now just like any other cheap, heavy, four-door family sedan, the Holden Commodore doesn't exactly handle that well. But thanks to a V6, 4-speed auto, and open diff, the VN to VZ Commodore is almost the perfect single pegging machine. Now there's a little bit of a technique when it comes to cranking single pegs. First you want to put your 4-speed slush box into first, then put your left foot on the brake, and before you stomp on the accelerator, you need to press the magic button. No, not the subscribe button, because you guys should have already pressed that. I'm trying to hit 200,000 subscribers this year, and it helps me out massively. Anyway, back to the video. The button in question is the power button. Now what this usually does is hold the gear that the car's in, and usually lets the engine rev up higher without changing gears. Now it's supposed to be meant for towing, but for V6 Commodore owners, it's
That implies you own a fucking trailer.
basically the nitrous button. As long as you don't get a knock on the door from Uncle Rodney in some of the older models, or stretch the rubber timing chains too much in some of the newer models, you'll be leaving one-wheel skid marks down the street in no time. Now of course this is easily rectifiable with a mini spool, LSD, or just enough common sense in general to not even bother trying in the first place. But we are talking about Commodore drivers, so common sense doesn't come into the equation.
Very
and while we're
true.
quickly on the topic of lack of common sense, I gotta talk
Holden Ute clocked at 253. Whoo! Man, he's hooking it. That's actually impressive that you were staying on the road at that.
talk about this guy here, a 20-year-old L-plater who got caught doing 250
He was on his L's. He didn't even have a full license. He was just fucking going for it.
53 kilometers an hour in a 110 zone in Adelaide. He was behind
Oh my fucking god. Yeah, I thought this looked like... I thought this city looked
the lack
familiar.
of common sense. I gotta talk.
Wait, where is this? Waterloo Corner. Wait, where the fuck's Waterloo Corner? I've definitely been down this road before.
About this guy here, a 20-year-old L player who got...
I just realized I haven't changed my thing over yet. Give me 1 second. Just chatting. There we go.
Caught doing 253 kilometers an hour in a 110 zone in Adelaide. He was behind the wheel of a Commodore Ute, which not long after was recycled into some tuna cans. But to be honest, I'm actually surprised he managed to get a Commodore up to that sort of speed. That's AU Falcon territory. Now, before the VY Commodore Owners Club crucifies me in the comments, this behaviour isn't just limited to Commodore drivers. Falcon drivers are notorious for it as well. However, when it comes to Falcon drivers, there tends to be a lot less meth involved. Now, it's all well and good doing a single peg in a straight line, but that's not entertaining for anyone. You can do that shit in a Toyota Hiace. When it really gets interesting is when Holden Commodore drivers try and take the corners with their unlimited slip diff. Once again, this isn't just limited to Commodore drivers. Falcon drivers do the exact same thing, but there seems to be an overwhelming amount more clips of Holden Commodore drivers going through people's front fences than Falcons. Now, there's a few reasons for this. First of all is the Ford Falcon is just better. The drivers are more sophisticated, like myself.
Surely that's the reason why.
And probably has a lot to do with the fact that they sold more Commodores than Falcons, meaning that there's just a lot more in general to be sent into trees. And I think I figured out why this is the case. Most Commodore drivers think that as soon as they buy their first Commodore, they're basically Peter Brock. And on paper, they're very similar. They both drive a Holden, they've both got a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. But unlike
Solid.
Peter Brock, most Commodore drivers have a lot less teeth, a lot less skill, and a much higher BAC. Whereas the only real
Mustangs younger, but only difference is Mustangs hit people. Yeah, see, here's the difference though. Australia, there's no one lives here, so you're not gonna hit anyone. You're just gonna fucking hit a tree.
difference between a racing driver and someone like me who drives an AU Falcon is that most racing drivers have 2 legs, whereas basically all AU Falcon drivers like myself have 3. Now before we move on, I need to talk about the infamous missing Commodore fuel cap.
Let's not! This actually is so... It actually is so fucking common that people just don't. I hadn't clicked with that, but yeah, a lot of these cars are actually missing it, aren't they?
Talk about the infamous missing Commodore fuel cap. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is more of a problem when it comes to the VT to VY Commodores, but just like how most Commodore owners are missing their front teeth, most Commodores are also missing their fuel cap. But you see, this is all by design.
Surely.
On the affected models, the fuel cap only opens so far, so when you go to fill it up with petrol, and you've been drinking Jim Beam all day and you're a little bit wobbly, you can accidentally hit it with the nozzle and snap it clean off. But why did Holden design the fuel cap to be so vulnerable and only open so far in the first place? Well, the answer is obvious. Aerodynamics. Why do you think the Commodore was so dominant in the V8 supercar series? Well, there's your answer. Anyway, moving on. Now, recently there's been a brand new influx of VF Commodore drivers. Due to the fact that they're so easy to steal, it seems that all of Australia's pond scum have managed to upgrade from the bus to a VF GESR. And when these thieves get their hands on these Commodores, there's one of 3 ways it usually goes. The first option is, of course, just to take them to the chop shop, chop them up, send all the expensive parts overseas, and then sell all the body panels on Facebook Marketplace, and then smartly reinvest all that money into the pokies or methamphetamine. The second option, of course, is to just joyride it around. But you see, most of the time the people that steal these Commodores either don't have a license because they're too young, or they lost it and never got it back after getting caught driving their Mitsubishi Magna high on ice, or in the odd chance that they do have a license, the power jump going from a VT Commodore with 340,000 Ks and chopped springs to a VF GDSR that they just pinched from a shopping centre is just too much for these morons to comprehend, and they end up like this guy, who managed to flip and roll a VFSS Commodore in a straight
considering he flipped the car.
and they end up like this guy.
He came out pretty well for flipping
He
a
managed
car.
to flip and roll a VFSS Commodore in a straight line on the freeway. He then used his meth superpowers to jump out of the car while bleeding and run on foot down the freeway. Now, the way they usually steal these cars is by cutting through the wheel liner first to disable the horn. They then brute force their way into the door and then reprogram a key using a scan tool. It's very simple, and people have tried all sorts of ways to stop these scumbags from getting into their cars. The most popular seems to be a horn relocation and a kill switch, so that when they think they cut through the wire for the horn, it still goes off when the alarm goes off, scaring them away. But me personally, if I had a VF Commodore and a garage to park it in, I'd tap into the power mains that go to my house, and add my own little plug into the horn wire, so when the next friendly home invader tries to take my car for a joyride and cut through the horn wire, they're greeted with 230 volts straight
Now
to the
that's
cranium.
an
And obviously
idea.
I'm not condoning this because violence is never the answer.
No.
But you may want to invest in some good rubber floor mats, because I can imagine the cleanup might be a little bit messy. Anyway, moving on. Now, it would appear that ever since the late 70s when the Commodore first came out, it's consistently topped the list of being the most stolen and easiest car to steal of all time. And as far as I'm aware, it's the most stolen car in Australian history, full stop. The old ones such as the VBs through the VN, you could practically steal with a screwdriver. Then as technology got a little bit better, they became a little bit harder to steal, but people still did it. With the VT through to VE Commodores still being stolen extremely regularly. And then of course the VF was just a disaster all round. Unlike the AU Falcon, of course, which introduced Smart Lock, which despite the name was not very smart at all, since half the time if you actually had the key to the car, it'd just brick itself and not let you start it, usually requiring an aftermarket chip just to get the thing going again. But this of course meant one thing for Commodore owners. You see, most thieves weren't going for the Bellina V6s. They were going for the HSV models, the SSs, and all the expensive ones. So if you managed to buy an X-Cop V,
Holy!
the HSV models, the SSs, and all the...
Sorry? That's not a real listing. Shut up, that's not a real listing. No, there is not a there is not a 2002 Commodore for 1.5 mil with 200 Ks on the clock. That's not real.
expensive ones. So if you managed to buy an X-Cop VL Turbo for $1,100 in 2011, and then slowly over the years, Jimmy the Junkie and Crystal Bear slowly turned all the other ones into tree ornaments, the prices started to
Oh my
skyrocket. And that
God.
basically meant two things. The people who owned these cars for years and had multiple of them became very wealthy in a very short amount of time. And of course, it made these cars a much bigger target for Australia's pond scum because they could strip them and sell the parts for much more money. Anyway, this topic's been talked about 1 billion times by 1 billion different people, so we'll move on to something else. Now, there are many different variants of the Holden Commodore, including the Holden Statesman, which any Commodore owner will say, it's a Statesman, not a Commodore. And of course, the most appropriate response to anyone who says that to you is shut up. Now, we'll start off with the Statesman. The Statesman is just a heavier, worse handling Holden Commodore. But in my and most people's opinion, these are just better all round. They look cooler, they're more luxurious, and most of them even came with a V8. But a little known fact is that if you actually own a Statesman, you can't just drive it on a normal car license. You'll need a boat license as well. They call these a land yacht for a reason. They literally just got a Holden Commodore and filled it with leather, wood grain, and other luxurious items like electric power, rear windows, which basically just
Wow, so luxurious. Power
added a
windows.
bunch of weight to a car that already handled like a wet dog on a polished wooden floor. Now, most older Statesman owners are either P-platers or just straight up bogans. And a theme that you'll see here with all these Commodore owners is the cheaper they get, the owners are much more likely to either have P-plates, be wearing a flannelette, or have a fitted interlock device. But the Statesman isn't the only variant that attracts the dentally challenged. You've also got the Calais, which is sort of in between the normal Commodore and the Statesman, some weird 4x4 models that nobody bought, and of course the ultimate bogan chariot, the Holden Ute. Now, the Holden Ute is by far the most popular bogan car of all time. People use the Falcon Utes for work thanks to the separate tray/tub on the back that you could change out for whatever setup you need, whereas 90% of Holden Commodore Utes used a unibody design. So you'd get a Falcon Ute for business and a Holden Ute for pleasure. And you know what they say, you never mix business and pleasure. Now, the thing about all these different models is that the owners only vary depending on the price point. The cheaper any of these models are, Statesman, Commodore, Ute, whatever, attracts the P-platers and the Centrelink mob. Then as they get a little bit more expensive, it attracts the sort of owner that knows what a resume is and may have even had a job or two. Then when you get into the SS territory, pretty much all these owners
These fucking 30s.
have to have a job because of how expensive they've become recently. But of course, there are a few
He is in the fucking comment section.
employed outliers. And then as we keep going up into the HSVs, the owners completely change to collectors, people that might even own a button-up suit shirt, and of course FIFO workers. But then at the tippy top, where they cost over $100,000, you got your people like Adrian Portelli, who was happy to spend over $1 million on a Holden ute. Anyway, now I know I've spent like the last 10 minutes just ragging on the Holden Commodore and Commodore owners, but my real thoughts are, the Holden Commodore is more of a luxury and sporty version of the Falcon. The performance model Commodores are a lot more expensive than the Falcons of the same era for a reason. They're just better. The Falcon was more of a workhorse. It was more often used for taxis that had gone to reach millions of kilometers. And as I mentioned with the Utes, it was more of a trade vehicle. The way I see the Falcon, it's more of a reliable, robust workhorse that they eventually shoved a big, powerful engine in and called it a day. Whereas the Commodores are always a little bit more refined and weren't exactly marketed towards fleet buyers like all the Falcons were back in the day. But thanks to the cooler stigma around the Commodores, thanks to their Bathurst wins and whatnot, I think it's safe to say that you'll get a lot more idiots jumping in a VY Berliner thinking that they're Peter Brock than you would in a BA XT. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you'll probably enjoy one of these too. I'll see all of you guys in the next one.
That was fun. I always like the I always like doing the Australian videos. Always lots of fun to see. Oh man. I'm sad that the Holden shut down. Like that was like the Holden factory, like it's a close, or it was a close drive to where I was. You could like always see it. I've been past it a million times. Now that it's shut down, it's been shut down for a couple of years now, but now that it's shut down, it's like, man, you lose a part of that Australian history. But, you know, it is what it is. If anyone has any suggestions, I guess we could check out the PewDiePie video unless someone else has something else. Yeah. I understood nothing. It is nice to see you so happy.